So, Rebecca, we move on to, he says, effortlessly moving into his share screen skills. We move into component of a thinking environment, Nancy Kline, number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which is information. My very brief note is full and accurate picture of reality. Information in the context of the thinking environment. Over to you for the difficult bit of kicking us off.
Thank you very much for that. So I guess this one is, I think this one is quite a skill, actually, is talking about providing information, relevant information at the right time. So as we've discussed in some of these other things, other elements before, is listening to somebody, listening fully, not interrupting, not jumping in. And the temptation sometimes is to think, oh, well, I know the answer to that question. I know the answer to their solution. I need to give them this information now. But if we do that, the likelihood is that we stop them from coming up with their own solution. So I think this one can be tricky. It's about knowing when to step in and give the appropriate information and knowing what the appropriate information is, because the person may get to a conclusion themselves which might be different from what I think is the right conclusion.
Yeah, none of these things are definite, isn't it? It's all interpretative. I mean, we're giving our interpretation, somebody else's might be different. And I guess what I was thinking and what you've caused me to think, I'm not too far away from what for me is what this is about, is about balance, because information isn't just about giving information, isn't it? It's about receiving it. Have I got enough information from this person? Have I allowed them the time they needed to explore this issue fully? Is there more information for me to receive? Not just, is this person ready to receive my information? Because I've seen quite a few of the videos on and around people who use Nancy Kline's thinking environment stuff, and they talk all the time about only speaking when invited to do so. So that's about allowing someone else to manage the information such that your role in information giving could be next to nothing.
Yeah, and I think that it's recognizing when there is a pause because someone is thinking about something, and when there is a pause because someone is struggling to understand what to do next, and I'm not really genuinely not sure what the answer is. And sometimes if we withhold that information, we're doing that person a disservice, but we do have to be mindful about when is the appropriate time to give it, and in an appropriate way as well.
Right. Gosh, I interrupted you there. It's the first time I've done that for a while. That was poor timing rather than anything else. Because withholding information could be unhelpful, and yet misjudging the moment in making a contribution could be even more unhelpful. We always need a signal. Ended my bit. Roger and out type stuff. So information management in contribution to a conversation, for instance, as we're having now, you've got two active parties. Both parties are not just doing content, providing words and communicating by signals information, because if I'm going, that's information just as much as what I'm saying. But it's also about judging when to stop yourself, when to restrain yourself from giving information. It's not easy, is it?
No, and I think this is where it can possibly take some practice to get this right as well. I think there will be times when we jump in too soon, or actually we realise that if we'd have just said this a couple of minutes earlier, then we wouldn't have had to go down this route here, or we could have really helped someone quicker or whatever. That it's not necessarily the easiest thing to know when to do it and how to do it. And I guess it's also making sure that the person is open to receiving that information as well. Sometimes they might not be ready for it, or it might come as a surprise, or so I think we have to manage this one quite carefully.
And information that is prompted by the other party or other people is also about questioning. So again, information. I think the inference for some, myself included, initially is that's about me giving information. Very often that might not be in it at all. The most beneficial actions that sometimes are personalized that I can make in a conversation is to give no information at all, but to seek only more from the other party.
Yeah, and asking for information, isn't it? And ask it. So I suppose this comes down to, as coaches, asking the right questions. You know, I always remember the phrase, if you want a better answer, ask a better question. And I love that one. So it's thinking about how do you phrase a question to get the information that would be useful.
You know what? I've moved on that. I've moved on that because I'd have cued right into what you're saying 6 or 8, even weeks ago, certainly 6 months ago. Yeah, probably no more than 3 months ago. I said, yeah, coaching, that's all about asking questions. And a lot of people pride themselves on that. Let's not get too deeply into this as an aspect of it. But I think a lot of coaches that pride themselves on their questions should ask themselves, do you ask too many questions? Are you distracting the other person too much by asking your clever questions when you haven't given them enough time to think? Time to think. You know, I feel I should reach up to the shelf and pull it off to show the title of the book. And I think as a coach, I'm questioning myself very deeply about I over-question, I ask too many questions. And what I'm really doing is saying, I think I know where you should be going right now. That's terribly arrogant. I shouldn't even be in that space. I should be saying, I might say nothing during this conversation other than, would you like to tell me more about that?
Yeah. And sometimes that's enough, isn't it? Would you like to tell me more about that?
In other words, would you like to know none of my stories, anecdotes, how I feel about this, because they have no value or importance or significance in this conversation because it's all about you, not me. Oh, I've changed a bit. Nice one, Nancy. We can talk about it here. Can we do it beyond here when it's hardest in reality?
Yeah, I think that's something we both need to try, isn't it? And feedback on.
Oh, look at that face. You don't believe I'm capable of this. I can do this, Rebecca. I can do this stuff. I can show interest in people, and I can mean it too. But it's hard, and you can't fake it. People know if you're being inauthentic. If we're going back, you're right. We're making connections to all manner of these 10 components. We go back to the first one, showing respect, interest, and fascination. You can't fake that because if it's real for you, the questions will be spontaneous. They'll be linked to what people are saying. You aren't thinking about it. You are showing that interest. You are respectful. You even find what they're saying fascinating if you really work at it hard enough, and it can come naturally. But information, that's huge. Just that one word is about getting the balance right and getting the source of it right, which usually means saying very little.
Yeah, and probably longer than we think we should.
Indeed. End of this snippet.